Greetings, true Romans. My name is Kit. This is Americans Learn. Now, through the time checking out this wonderful channel by Dovahati about the unbiased history of Rome, we have learned about the great heroes, such as Romulus and Remus, Cincinnatus, Gaius Julius Caesar, Augustus, Trajan, Hadrian, the honorable and respectable and hero and savior of the world, Aurelian, R.I.P. We also learned about the foul barbarians, the monsters, the sorcerers who use warcraft, statecraft, and for the witches, they use sexcraft and witchcraft, of course. But listen, nonetheless, Rome will survive. And right now, Rome has been split in two. And, well, technically split in four ways. But it needs a unifier again, a hero to step up. Somebody who's great. Somebody who should even have a city named after him. And this is why we're checking out Constantine the Great. So, grab yourself some true Roman wine, true Roman bread, and let's sit back and hear about Constantine the Great. And something tells me that this will be great. So let's go ahead and enjoy this series in a 3, a 2, and an uno. I'm very curious to see how this all plays out. Let's see the unbiased history of Constantine the Great. Hold on, we're doing that again. Something tells me that this is going to be a work of art.
It was the height of the crisis of the 3rd century. Claudius Gothicus had recently saved Nisus from the Gothic hordes. Thanks to him, his great-nephew could bear a child with his loved one, during the reign of Rome's greatest emperor.
Oh. It's Aurelian. Sorry if I get a little teary-eyed. I actually found a couple of great documentary videos on Aurelian. And if this video gets enough views, all right, let's just say it gets enough views, I'll have to talk to management and see if we can get up an all Aurelian special.
A child with his loved one, during the reign of Rome's greatest emperor. In time, the crisis would pass, and that child would surpass even his own legacy. This is the tale of Flavius Valerius Constantinus, or as history would know him, Constantine the Great.
And Aurelian already saw greatness in you. Thank you, hero, for saving the world so that Constantine could be here too.
From a very early age, Constantine had it hard. Born and raised on the most dangerous imperial border, his father was constantly out fighting barbarians, leaving him to be raised by his mother, Helena, a saintly figure.
Aww.
The years passed, and eventually he received news of his father's promotion as Caesar and his engagement to the emperor's daughter. Still loved by his father, he was sent to Diocletian's court, where he was to learn how to be an emperor from one of the very best. And in the battlefield, Constantine proved himself a prodigy, crushing barbarian invasions with Diocletian in the Danube, and slaughtering Sassanids under Galerius in the east, gaining the respect.
Yes, beware of evil tits. Beware of evil boobs. They're gonna take advantage of you!
Praise and adoration of all as a natural leader. Returning to Nicomedia, Constantine was present for the Great Persecution, seeing that no matter how many Christians were killed, it never seemed to be enough. He didn't know quite to think of it, but one thing was certain: killing them all didn't seem to work. Diocletian knew greatness when he saw it, and together with Galerius, he feared that Constantine might prove a threat to the tetrarchic system. So once Diocletian finally resigned, seeking to restore the unfamiliar succession system of the 5 good emperors, he proclaimed neither Constantine nor Maxentius would be Caesars, their talent or obvious villainy not quite the point. And after Diocletian retired to his cabbage farm and Galerius took over, the new Augustus sought to test his co-emperor's son, throwing Constantine into a 1-on-1 fight against a lion, which he won.
Whoa!
A hunt of Sarmatians beyond Constantine into a 1-on-1 fight against a lion, which he won. Then on a hunt of Sarmatians beyond the Danube, returning with the barbarians' heads, thus proving himself. Already an adult, Constantine hooked up with his first love, Minervina, with whom he had his first son, Crispus, named after his great-grandfather. One night, as Galerius was partying, after being asked by both Constantius and Constantine to let father and son reunite, he relented, letting him go and crush the legs of every horse on his way to ensure he would keep going. After traversing his way west, Constantine was reunited with his father in Bononia, even if it would prove to be for a short while. By the time he was crossing into Britain, he had learned much of the empire he lived on, the heroes that defined it, the fates they met, and the gods they worshipped.
Oh, the Praetorians. By soul, it still makes me angry. It'd make me angry too.
All influencing him deeply.
Never trust
Fighting beyond the wall, Constantine almost finished Agricola's legacy, but had to halt, for his father's end was at hand. Marching south to Aboracum, Constantius uttered his last words, declaring his support for Constantine to become an Augustus, and then dying. And the legions, in their grief, acclaimed Constantine as Augustus right then and there, to his deep surprise and confusion. Putting his grief aside, he reported everything to Emperor Galerius, and after hearing about the hasty acclamation, Galerius was kinda pissed. But after promoting Severus as the new Western Augustus, needing a new Western Caesar as fast as possible, Galerius named Constantine as such, leaving him hoping to live up to his father's support. And after that, Hispania declared loyalty to him, since Severus II was so distant if anything, and he would prove himself worthy, defending the empire from both Picts, Franks, and Alemanni, kicking the former beyond the wall, having the Frankish kings thrown to the lions, and having the Alemanni beg for mercy so hard that he had it minted into a coin. In Trier, Constantine upgraded the western capital to his standards, ending the Christian persecutions and overseeing the burial of Minervina, who had recently died. Hearing of Constantine's achievements, Maxentius kept bursting in anger, while his sister, Fausta, stood by listening to his envious bitching. With the Western Augustus now being Severus II, a friend of the Senate-hating Eastern Tetrarchs, the senators saw in Maxentius their opportunity to retake power. Every day they fueled his anger and victimization, all heightened by 2 new announcements Severus II made. 1. Rome was now to pay taxes, as did everyone else in the empire. And 2. The Praetorian Guard was to be, finally, thank the gods, abolished.
Yo! Dude, get out of there, you're gonna get killed.
The scum of the empire now united in outrage, the Senate and Praetorians acclaimed Maxentius as Augustus, who instantly accepted and promised all of their old powers back. Using the senators and Praetorians, Maxentius took over most of Italy, and awaited Galerius to legitimize his usurpation. But when Galerius heard of this, he exploded in rage, immediately sending Severus II with an army to go crush him. But once Severus II arrived in Italy, Maxentius just hid behind the Aurelian walls like the spineless coward.
You dare hide behind those walls that were built to defend Rome from the monsters, and yet the monster's in there. How dare you do that to Aurelian's legacy?
He was unable to breach it, and with his Maximian veterans being bribed to defect him, Severus gave up trying. And speaking of Maximian, he was still grumbling over in his retirement villa. But when the senatorial and praetorian envoys came in pleading him to return back to power, after pretending to be reluctant, he went right along with them. Now reunited with his own father, Maxentius sent him to go defeat Severus, who had by then camped north in Ravenna. Once Maximian arrived with overwhelming numbers, he promised Severus he would spare his life if he surrendered. Seeing no way out, Severus did just that, and then Maximian killed him. Yeah, Diocletian really was holding it all together, wasn't he? Now betrayed by his ex-tetrarch, Galerius sighed, leaving the east under the supervision of Licinius, his best friend, while he marched to Italy. And while Constantine slaughtered more Germanic invaders, he received a letter from Maxentius of all cunts begging for his help. And though Constantine refused to betray Galerius, after getting engaged with Fausta, he agreed to be neutral as good faith. Maximian sent to oversee his succession as Augustus from Severus, since Galerius was rather busy at the moment. Unfortunately, Maxentius had already taken over all of Italy, so Galerius had to carve his way through hostile cities and lack of supplies. Laying siege to Rome, Galerius offered to settle things diplomatically, but Maxentius had shoved his head too far up his own ass for that, hiding behind the Aurelian walls, again, bribing the lawful emperor's soldiers, again, thus forcing him to retreat, again. Smug as fuck, Maximian went to oversee Constantine's ascension from Western Caesar to Western Augustus, married him to his daughter Fausta, and all while proclaiming to be the senior Augustus.
Yes, keep your guard on, son. Stepmothers are always demons. Yes, be careful. It's one thing this modern day and age has taught us, yes.
Like Diocletian was. Yeah, he was. So much so that when he met again with Maxentius to discuss their future aspirations, they conflicted so much that they started to fight over who was really in charge. Watching Maxentius getting thrown around, the Praetorian Guard became really mad, forcing Maximian to flee for his life. Back in Nicomedia, as Galerius lamented the current state of the Tetrarchy, he was visited by Maximian, now seeking asylum. I'm not kidding, he chose Galerius of all emperors. Not a lethal mistake though, as he would prove himself useful for what was to come next. Organizing a meeting of the original Tetrarchs, Galerius convinced Diocletian to leave his farm for once and talk with his past colleagues. Meeting up in a fort on the Danube, Maximian begged Diocletian to return to power with him, flat out refusing, and saying, "If only you saw the majestic cabbages I was growing back home, you too would give up the pursuit of worldly power."
I can relate to the feeling because I'm growing tomatoes. And I love my 5 tomato plants that I'm growing. I have heirloom tomatoes, Better Boy tomatoes, Big Boy tomatoes. I got a Sicilian cherry plant tomato, and I also got some purple tomatoes growing. What? Don't give me that look. Those are going to be true Roman tomatoes for a true Roman.
Diocletian, cabbage farmer. And after telling Maximian to go back to retirement, Galerius sought approval for his reform of the Tetrarchy. Galerius and Dia would remain as they were. Constantine would be demoted back to Caesar, despite Galerius not having the authority to do that. Maxentius would still be an usurper, and Licinius would be inserted in as the new Western Augustus. And speaking of the usurper, he was by then brutally crushing revolts, ruling tyrannically and getting hated more and more by the Roman Italians. To recompensate the scorned Westerners, Galerius gave them the title of Son of the Augusti, which both of them refused for very different reasons. Which brings us back to Dia, still Caesar of the East and yet now calling himself Augustus as well, making up 5 in total. Having outlived his usefulness to Galerius, Maximian then fled to the court of Constantine in the west, where he was welcomed with respect. Constantine then gave Maximian some legions to keep an eye on Maxentius in the Alps, while he went to crush more Germans on the Rhine. And the minute Constantine went away, Maximian told everyone Constantine had died, and that they all should acclaim him as Augustus, the senior Augustus, which everyone called bullshit on, sending word to Constantine about it, forcing him to abandon his campaign. After failing to bribe them to his side, Maximian then fled for his life again, eventually hiding in Massalia, modern Marseilles or however you pronounce that. Constantine then arrived, was allowed in with no problems, hunted down Maximian and spared him, telling him not to do something stupid again, which was just the last straw for Maximian. After a lifetime of failures, he would prove himself competent by killing his own son-in-law. After implicating his daughter Fausta in the murder, he sneaked into Constantine's room and stabbed him to death. Only that the Constantine he killed was a decoy, placed by Fausta, who had already alerted Constantine, having Maximian apprehended, earning her the Emperor's trust. A failure once again, Maximian was told by Constantine to just go kill himself, which he did, hanging himself to death. One of the few things he set out to do on his own, and achieved successfully. Finally able to sleep in peace, Constantine experienced a divine vision. brought to a spiritual realm, the two divine aspects, Apollo and Victoria, emerged, gifting him a laurel wreath and proclaiming he would rule long and with health. And once awake, his piety went even further beyond. The gods of the sun and victory appearing was no coincidence. The more he thought about it, the clearer the truth of a grander monotheistic god appeared, known to all Romans as Deus Sol Invictus. While in the east, Galerius met the same fate as Diocletian, suffering from a disease so bad that the stench of his rotting organs were smelled all across Nicomedia. As his final act, he declared the great persecution a failure, proclaiming an end to it, and then dying, painfully. Dia then re-emerged, taking over Galerius' possessions and even his court, imprisoning both Diocletian's wife and daughter.
No!
As it turns out, Dia was a huge cunt. When news of it all reached Diocletian, it struck him hard. The tetrarchy he had created was in ruins. His family was imprisoned, and every single one of his friends were now...
No.
It was in ruins. His family was imprisoned, and every single one of his...
Everything. Oh, they're all gone. All gone.
His friends were now gone. Thinking it was all his fault, he hanged himself in his palace, saying goodbye to this doomed world. After his death, Licinius did the same.
But his cabbages. Barbarians. It's barbarian witchcraft that's doing this.
Dia, seizing Galerius' past domains and setting their border between the Bosphorus Strait, leaving both of them unsatisfied. And fuck pleb, now the empire was truly divided, between 4 Augusti, only 2 of which were legitimate, the western ones being polar opposites, and the eastern ones despising each other. The absolute state.
Oh god. This is horrific. What would Aurelian say to all of you? Shame on you! Except for you, Constantine. You're doing all right. The rest of you 3, shame on you.
No wonder Diocletian killed himself. By far the worst of them was Maxentius, who, despite hating his father, proclaimed he would avenge him by declaring war on Constantine, out of nowhere, throwing the Tetrarchy into civil war. Receiving this news, Constantine vowed to remove the tyrant Maxentius from Rome, for God and empire.
Sol, I saw him. I saw Aurelian.
Oh, and by the way, it's about time I told you that Constantius' second marriage rendered his son 6 half-siblings: Julius, Dalmatius, Constantia, Eutropia, Anastasia, and Fausta. And no, don't give me that look. We've only begun with the name dumps. This is the Constantinian dynasty, you pleb. Get used to it. Yes. Constantine then started out allying himself with Licinius against Maxentius, promising his sister Constantia's hand in marriage, which provoked Dia into recognizing Maxentius' rule if he allied with him, which he agreed to. It was all now a team deathmatch. Preparing for the war, Constantine's advisor recommended him to stay in the defensive, for whether if Maxentius attacked or stayed out, his defeat was imminent. Constantine agreed, which is why he proclaimed his intent to invade Italy, telling everyone to start packing. Constantine then crossed the Alps with 40,000 men, only a quarter of his total army, still mainly focused on defending his citizens from barbarians as he was. While in Rome, Maxentius ordered the patricians to build him a huge basilica in his honor, but he was too lazy to actually finish it, instead sending his minions to go fight his war for him. And as he entered Italy, Constantine was halted at Sigusium, which he dealt with by setting its walls on fire, and then scaling them, taking it with ease, and forbidding any looting, showing to all his benevolence. Maxentius then responded by sending a huge cavalry army to attack them near Turin, which, astoundingly, Constantine encircled with his foot soldiers, descending on it and dismounting the riders to their deaths. What few survived then fled to Turin, and were refused entry by the locals, who then happily opened their gates to Constantine.
Yes.
After that, more and more cities surrendered to him, and he was then cheerfully welcomed into Mediolanum as a liberator.
Let's see. Proto Milan wants some fat, thick mercy. Give it to him.
After resting, Constantine marched east to face a huge Maxentian army, led by his Praetorian prefect, which was camped out on the heavily fortified fortress of Verona, covered in 3 sides by rivers. And to cross the river, Constantine sent a tiny detachment of cavalry to scout the area, which the prefect noticed, sending a way bigger army to quash the attempt, and getting crushed instead.
Yo!
Constantine then laid siege to Verona, allowing the prefect to flee, and returned with an even bigger army, to which Constantine sent 1 tiny battalion to fight off. The insulted prefect then attacked, got his entire army destroyed, and died in battle.
Damn!
And it's hard not to laugh. After this show of force, Verona just surrendered to Constantine, and later all remaining cities in North Italy did so as well.
Good.
Now more terrified than ever, Maxentius abandoned his people, hoarding all of his troops and resources into Rome, destroying all bridges on the Tiber and hoping the Aurelian walls would save him again. Constantine was then cheered on as he approached Rome, camping nearby where the Milvian Bridge once stood. And while he threw games as a distraction, the crowd started cheering for Constantine, declaring him to be invincible. Fitting, as for around then, Constantine gathered his men for a march that would change the fate of the world. As they marched, Constantine's vision was taken over by a radiant beam of light from the sky. Over the light of the sun, a gigantic symbol had manifested in the sky, beneath a divine commandment. In hoc signo vincis, by this sign, conquer. The entire army had shared the vision, but once it vanished, not even Constantine knew what to really make of it. Later that day, going to sleep and praying for answers, he experienced another vision. As lucid as ever, he woke up in an even grander divine realm, and again, he wasn't alone. Beside him was someone.
The chosen one. Hero, I knew you didn't die. I knew it. I knew it. We saved you. Wait, it's just a dream, isn't it? What vision do you share with us, hero?
Someone he knew, yet didn't understand. He was all of the gods of Roman tradition, and yet beyond them. The Logos in the flesh, the Alpha and the Omega, Sol Invictus, and even more. Before him stood the one true God. And now he appeared to Constantine as Jesus Christus, the dead Judaistic himself.
What? I never knew it.
And what at first sounded insane now made more sense than anything.
It does.
Sol Invictus, Jesus Christus, different interpretive aspects of the same overarching deity. And as the revelation shined light on many old questions, the true God again stood before him, telling Constantine to bear the first two letters of Christus's name as his symbol and that of his allegiance, to which he accepted and returned to the mortal realm.
Yes.
And once he woke up, Constantine got straight out of bed and started hunting down for a shitload of paint. The next morning, Maxentius celebrated his 6th anniversary since his usurpation, and Rome's priests told him that the enemy of Rome would be defeated that very day. Surprised with joy, Maxentius ordered his troops out of the city to finally face Constantine. And since he had destroyed the Milvian Bridge earlier, Maxentius ordered his men to build a temporary bridge to cross the Tiber. As he finished the crossing, Constantine's army appeared in the distance, and Maxentius could not believe what he saw.
Glorious.
For the glory of Deus, Constantine ordered his cavalry to charge and annihilate Maxentius' cavalry, and marched his legions forward. Despite heavily outnumbered, Constantine pushed them further and further backwards to the Tiber River. His will to fight already broken, Maxentius ordered a retreat back to the Aurelian walls, and what ensued was pure chaos.
No.
Tens of thousands of soldiers panicked, crossing at the same time. In that mass, Maxentius was pushed out of the bridge and drowned in the Tiber River, along with many of his men. And at the end of the day, Rome's enemy had died, and with this sign, Constantine had conquered. Victorious, Constantine was welcomed in Rome with a triumph, displaying Maxentius' severed head. But as he did, he refrained from going to the Temple of Jupiter, now truly understanding the grander divinity he represented. Instead, he went to the Senate, where the senators implored their master for mercy, proclaiming him the senior and greatest Augustus. And he let them be, for his ire was directed to the other parasites. Seeing his merciful attitude, the
Oh, wow. Behold, Constantine, he who pardons all. All right, let's go see this.
Praetorians judged Constantine as yet another emperor they could exploit, and awaited to be bribed to ensure their loyalty.
Don't trust him.
Just waiting for an opportunity to betray him
Don't
in the
trust him.
future.
Don't trust him.
However, the time
There they all are. The emperors who have been betrayed. And there in the center is our hero. Can he get some justice, please?
had finally come. The time for a new age. The time for revenge. And so Constantine proclaimed that the Praetorian Guard would be abolished.
For them! For them! For them! You know what I find funny? Aurelian's there without the mask, but he's not doing the dab. He's just proud. And I think on that one day on Earth, there was peace. Just for that one day. It's called the rare bonding moment where all of humanity just stands up as one and kicks the ever-living shite out of the bastards causing a problem at the club. Let's rewind that again. That was glorious. That was just glorious.
Revenge. And so Constantine proclaimed that the Praetorian Guard would be abolished.
Get away! Get him! Chase him! Thank you, Aurelian. Rest in peace. You got justice. You got justice, Aurelian, and to all the other emperors, and to all the other victims of the Praetorian Guard. Sleep well, friends. Justice has arrived. Fuck them up.
It took hundreds of years, but now Rome's betrayed emperors could finally
There he is. I see him. There's Aurelian. We see you, buddy.
rest in peace, with Constantine's deeds forever immortalized in the triumphal arc he then
Praetorian
built.
Guard over there in the corner.
Displaying both his pagan and Christian beliefs, Constantine issued currency bearing Sol Invictus and in others the Cairo, which he now understood as both sides of the same coin. Constantine then met with Licinius in Mediolanum, married him to his sister as promised, and together they issued the Edict of Milan, officially legalizing Christianity in the Roman Empire, although only one of them actually meant it. But when Dia heard of Maxentius' defeat, he was way back in the Syrian desert and immediately marched west. On his way, he continued persecuting Christians non-stop, in clear violation of the Edict of Milan. Nevertheless, Constantine said he would pardon him if he vowed to follow the law from now on, which Dia refused, gathering some 70,000.
You know, that town, Byzantium, something about it. There's something really great about it, but you know, the name's okay, but it could be better.
men crossing the Bosphorus and taking Byzantium. Suddenly forced into another civil war, Constantine had no time to reinforce Licinius' army before he marched off. So to boost their spirits, Licinius was then visited by an angel, which handed him a prayer that would work for all interpretations of the one true God, be it Jupiter, Sol, Yahweh, whatever. His speech given, Licinius faced Dia's overwhelming numbers at Zeralum, the city where Aurelian had once been.
Oh, I saw him, Aurelian.
Betrayed decades back.
No.
Confident in his numbers, Dia just stayed in the defensive, knowing that Licinius' men would soon give up. Eventually their incessive attacking proved him wrong, but too late for him by then. As his army was crushed, he crossed the Bosphorus Strait fleeing to Anatolia. Making a last stand, Dia Larptes Probus and fortified himself in the Cilician gates against Licinius, who didn't actually bother facing him in person, sending his legions alone, who then crushed Dia's forces anyway. Fleeing to Tarsus in his last moments, he then Larptes Galerius, proclaiming an end to the persecutions, accepting the Edict of Milan, and then dying, also painfully. Now in charge over the Eastern Empire, the vices of power made Licinius show his true colors.
No.
With that, he massacred Dia's entire family, executed Severus' second son for being a friend of his, and then hunted down Diocletian's wife and daughter, murdering them both. Hearing of this horrific carnage from afar, Constantine's alliance with Licinius immediately began deteriorating. And as that happened, Armenia had gotten a new king again, a Christian this time, who then proclaimed Christianity as Armenia's state religion, outlawing all other pagan interpretations of God, a premonition if there ever was one. And talking of Christianity, Constantine was facing the greatest threat to Christianity's success, Christcockery. More precisely, the tendency of Christians to engage in petty squabbles over abstract garbage to the detriment of unity, law, and order. You see, Aurelian was the first Roman emperor to dabble into Christian issues by their.
Oh, it's there's Aurelian. So, could you please depose a bishop in Antioch? Zenobia put him there, and Zenobia, that lady.
Own request, and now being Constantine's turn, he was asked to resolve the Donatist issue regarding the Christians that had complied with the persecutions. And the Donatists would keep asking for more and more favors, so getting on his nerve that Constantine demanded them to fucking shut up, which they eventually did. As the years passed, Fausta would bear Constantine's 6 children: Constantine II, Constantius II, and Constans, plus another 3 girls, Constantina, Elena, and Fausta, but who cares. And Constantia also bore a child with Licinius as well, Licinius II. This will be one fucked family tree for a while.
Boy.
And with so many potential heirs, Constantine then proposed to revive Diocletian's tetrarchy. Sending Julius to speak with Licinius, Constantine then married Anastasia.
Wait, hold on. Whatever, Flavius, just let me ruin our son in peace.
Diocletian's tetrarchy. Sending Julius to speak with Licinius, Constantine then married Anastasia to Bassianus, a friend of Senecio, who was BFFs with Licinius, proposing to elevate him as Caesar alongside Crispus, Constantine's now grown eldest son, to which Licinius refused outright, later ordering Senecio to order Bassianus to go and murder Constantine in his sleep. However, Bassianus hadn't been the first one to try that, completely failing in his plot and getting executed for the attempt. And when Constantine demanded Senecio to be handed over for judgment, Licinius refused, tearing down all of Constantine's statues in his realm, and thus declaring war. And wait a second here, the empire was now split west and east among 2 men with family ties who hated each other on the precipice of civil war?
Oh no. No, not again. When Mark Antony fought Augustus. But see, it wasn't Mark Antony's fault. Cleopatra used sexcraft and witchcraft.
If God wants to replay the Augustus arc so bad, he can't blame me for already knowing who the Livia of this story is. So yeah, Constantine then led a force of 20,000 men over the Alps into Illyria, and Licinius gathered 35,000 men and marched west. They finally clashed in Pannonia, where the infantry clashed for hours, Constantine flanked and destroyed the enemy forces, and Licinius just fled in the dark of night. Fleeing to the east, Licinius raised one of his generals, Valens, as his co-Augustus to ensure his loyalty. Remember that name, it's kinda confusing. After declining a peace treaty, getting fucked on the battlefield, and escaping again, it was only after encircling Constantine to no avail that he felt secure enough to negotiate. Constantine then forced Licinius to recognize him as the senior Augustus, took everything west of Thrace, and had Valens executed. That done, Constantine then formed a new tetrarchy on his own, elevating Crispus and Constantine II as Caesars, with Licinius II added in as another fifth wheel. He then moved his capital to Sirmium so he could keep an eye on Licinius up close close, sending Crispus to go defend the West from barbarians in his name, protecting Gaul from 3 massive Germanic invasions.
Yes!
And being as talented as his father, Crispus became just as loved and admired by all. And back to Licinius, he disobeyed his own edict and started persecuting Christians again, plain just ignoring that whole angel thing, I guess. As he wasted his time on that, Constantine was defending the Danube from both Goths and Sarmatians, crushing
These barbarians. They just don't quit, do they?
them both in battle and even killing the new Gothic king before he caused much trouble. Thing is, the barbarians began invading through Licinius' side instead, forcing Constantine to constantly cross the border and clean up the mess. And instead of helping him defend his citizens, he declared war on Constantine again, gathering 165,000 men to fight Constantine's 130,000.
No, don't do it, don't do
Fortifying
it.
himself beside the river by Adrianople, Licinius also betrayed civilization and recruited a huge Gothic horde to serve him.
Why?
Constantine, however, bound a whole Frankish horde into his service, binding them with the divine magic of his Chiral standard. Facing Licinius, Constantine found a good spot to cross the river, ordering a bridge to be built far away as a distraction.
Good.
And once Licinius fell for the bait, Constantine crossed and flanked his lines, pushing him back and casting his standard's divine magic on his own legions, blasting them with so much power he made Licinius flee again, this time to Byzantium, naming yet another general as co-emperor.
So, this city, Byzantium, there's something about it that looks really great.
Some dude named Martinian, who he then sent east to gather a new army for him. And despite being injured, Constantine pressed on. But after realizing just how fucking hard it was to siege Byzantium, he ordered his son Crispus back from the west to lead his naval campaign. Sent
Yeah, you know, again, there's so much that I think this Constantine could do with Byzantium.
to face Licinius' fleet while vastly outnumbered in battle. Not only did Crispus win decisively, but God then sent a storm to destroy the remaining ships, leaving only 4 survivors. After this catastrophe, Licinius then fled to Anatolia, and was pursued by Constantine all the way to Chrysopolis. So desperate he became that he started praying to Jupiter and company for help, despite them being derivative of the god he had so recently scorned. So desperate in fact, he grew to fear Constantine's divine standard above everything else, forbidding his troops to attack in its direction, or to even look at it. Resorting to just charging his Goths at him, Constantine ordered one massive charge forward, killing tens of thousands and making Licinius flee one final time. And after fleeing to Nicomedia, Licinius sent his wife Constantia to go plead for his life, which he did, and as Constantine couldn't deny his sister's request, Licinius was allowed to live, being imprisoned in Thessalonica and Martinian in Cappadocia. But soon after he was set free by his adolescent son Licinius, and together they conspired with the Goths to link him together with their hordes and then kill Constantine.
Don't trust the barbarians!
But getting caught in the attempt, and for having conspired with barbarians against their emperor, plus all of their other crimes, they were both hanged to death, leaving Constantine as the sole
First time Big Bro marries you to a dude that tries killing him and is executed for it, eh? Yeah.
emperor of the whole empire. And with said empire now reunited and at peace, Constantine focused
Finally.
on amending its relationship with Christianity. It was no wonder why past emperors persecuted them so much, but with it now revealed as a true faith, Constantine began integrating them as proper citizens. To rule an empire at peace, Constantine
Oh. I hope someone's taking care of his cabbages. You know, I just recently watered my tomatoes and they're doing a great job growing.
chose to favor Christianity as his favorite faith, becoming the first Christian emperor in history. A wise move given how fast Christianity was spreading, and seeing the writing on the wall, Constantine acted appropriately. Persecuted Christians were recompensated for their losses, their leaders allowed entry into the government, and the declining pagan institutions, though still entirely legal and respected, were placed second to Christianity. By distancing them from Hebrew and into Latin, by fully integrating them into the empire as citizens and governors,
Bad,
Christianity
yes.
became an increasingly Roman faith.
Good. Now they're understanding. Good. Serve Rome and you'll be A-okay.
And eventually, a civilizing faith. And to appease the increasingly Christian masses, Constantine built countless churches left and right, among them the original St. Peter's Cathedral, built over where Nero had executed him, if only to send a message. All that said, Constantine had absolutely no patience for Christ's cookery in his empire,
Yeah.
and he was about to face a big one, the Arian heresy. It had all to do with a Christian autism called the Trinity. Get this, God is apparently the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, who are somehow not each other. Not that far from Constantine's true Trinity, to be honest, but let's do this the Christian way from now on. But that wasn't Arius' contention though. He accepted the Trinity as a concept. He just decided to be a divisive cunt by proclaiming, loudly, that the Son was inferior to the Father, when the standard thought was that they were equal, co-substantial. Now Constantine really didn't give a shit about any of that, but he was really annoyed to see it become the extremely divisive issue in the church it became. Seeing how petty this conflict was, and with the empire's religious unity at stake, Constantine proclaimed a global council of bishops would be held in Nicaea to settle the matter. The First Ecumenical Council of Nicaea. Hundreds of bishops attended, overseen and mediated by Constantine himself. Tempers flared, fights broke out, but with the emperor's gaze upon them, they all unanimously decided, but for 2 votes, that Arianism was indeed heresy, ending with the unrelenting Arius getting banished to Illyria. And in exile, Arius suffered the fate of a divisive heretic, suddenly getting a diarrhea, running for the bathroom, falling, getting a hemorrhage, and dying in a pool of his own piss and shit. Which then takes us to Crispus, who by being a war hero, as well as the spitting image of his father, but younger, his stepmother Fausta was taken over.
Oh no! Jesus. Seems like something you just find on an adult website. What's going on here? And she's going to the ada.
With lust for him, leading her to try and seduce Crispus one night.
I swear I think I saw this before. I knew it. Yo. Oh yeah, there's Messalina. Messalina again. Jeez, Messalina, you're pretty well known there, but okay. Nothing ever changes. War never changes. Human society never changes. But why do this in Rome?
But Crispus rejected her with disgust, thus pushing her to live up to the other stepmother stereotype, to get her revenge, and to secure her own son's ascension to power. Knowing that magic wouldn't work on Constantine, Fausta claimed that Crispus had tried to rape her and was plotting to murder him.
No!
Believing her, and completely devastated, Constantine then had his eldest son seized, tried, and
No!
But the pain of losing his beloved son wouldn't lessen. For while visiting his mother Helena in Rome, as he lamented his loss, she told him the truth, that Fausta had lied to him. Now angrier than ever before, Constantine threw Fausta into a bathing room and cranked up the heat until she suffocated to death. Now deprived of both enemies and loved ones, that weren't Crispus, Constantine focused back on the empire, with its capital particularly in mind.
Oh, I guess his 3 sons are just nowhere near to what Crispus would be.
It had long become a cesspool of
Great. You got. There's Augustus. Unfortunately, Julia just was not a good Roman woman.
Degeneracy. Its political and economical influence diminished away, and its strategic position grown more and more an issue.
Hold on.
Economical influence diminished away, and its
Have you heard the tragedy of Emperor Gallienus? No, I haven't. It's not a tale any true Roman would tell you.
Strategic position grown more and more an issue.
He could protect Hold on.
Economical influence diminished away, and its strategic position grown more and more
He could protect Italy from Rome's enemies, but not himself.
An issue. What the empire needed for a capital was a centrally located city, like in between continents, had a nice harbor, like in between 2 different seas, was close enough to volatile borders, like the Danube, and was so easily defensible that it could just build one massive wall on one of its sides and defend it for over 1,000 years Byzantium.
Whoa! I knew it! I was right the whole time. That place, Byzantium, 10 out of 10. An awesome city.
Byzantium. Here, near where his Trojan ancestors once stood, where his mentor Diocletian recently ruled, and right beside where the greatest emperor Aurelian was assassinated, Constantine was visited by an archangel, who confirmed this was where he was to build his new city.
Yes.
Constantine thus proclaimed the birth of a second Rome, a new Rome, Nova Roma, or as it was eventually named, the city of Constantine, Constantinople.
What a beautiful name! Just don't ever rename it. Okay? It's a bad idea. There's just something about renaming, okay, just Byzantium was okay. Constantinople's fantastic. Just From here on out, you just leave it alone. If it ain't broke, don't you dare fix it. And that's how it's going to be for forever and ever and ever and ever and ever.
Was eventually named the city of Constantine, Constantinople. And after helping delineate its borders, the Archangel vanished, and Constantine officially transformed Constantinople into the empire's new capital.
Yes.
And after emulating Romulus so much, he returned to emulating Augustus's miserable last years as one of the longest reigning emperors of all time. During his last years, he reinstituted the spirit of the Lex Julia.
Wait, hold on. To lose to Augustus is no shame, I guess.
Emperors of all time. During his last years, he reinstituted the spirit of the Lex Julia, severely punishing any and all degenerate behavior, most especially in his new capital, using biblical scripture to drill it into every Christian pleb's heads.
Adulterer!
And in that vibe, he sent his virtuous mother Helena to a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, returning with the pieces of the true cross, the very stick the dead Jew was on. Using all of his funds, he finished his new capital, and even created a new senate for it. He had thousands of senators.
Jeez, look at them. You couldn't find any better senators?
And was just as useless as the one back in Rome. And as a true student of Diocletian, Constantine issued many reforms of his own. Most importantly, the last major reform of the Roman military. We still had comitatenses limitanei in the navy and all, but now subdued barbarian hordes had a name, Federati.
No.
The legates and duxes that ruled them were now led by the Magister Peditum and Magister Equitum, masters of foot and horses. And above them was the Magister Militum, master of armies, topped only by the emperor himself. And to provide future emperors with a proper bodyguard, Constantine created the Palatini Palace Guards, which due to being elite soldiers and being denied the depravities of Praetorians, would prove to be far more loyal.
Good.
But as he reformed the armies, Constantine saw the rise of many half-Germans in the legions, with his suspicion of them shared by a young soldier recruit, Valentinian, whom held a hatred for Germans greater than any Roman that had ever lived. And so much had Constantine beaten the barbarians over the decades that he got away with building a bridge over the Rhine and rebuilding Trajan's bridge in the Danube, once slaughtering 100,000 Goths and retaking Lower Dacia.
Good.
But if you will remember, it still is all downhill from here. For Constantine's rule would prove to be the last golden age of Rome. From here on, the empire would face an increasingly devastating crisis of instability, treachery, civil wars, and barbarian invasions worse than any nightmare. And it was all confirmed by the heirs he was doomed to pass the empire to. Of his 3 sons, Constantine II was the opposite of his father, weak, vain, and treacherous. Constantius II was intelligent and strong, but had grown cynical and distant due to Faustus' upbringing. And Constans was a fag. Really. He loved dick. Very Christian. So he then looked onto his nephews, like the sons of Constantius' new marriage, Dalmatius and Hannibalianus, as well as the sons of Julius, like Gallus, the step-grand-grand-grand-grand-grand-grandson of Caracalla, and also his half-brother, a very young Julian, in whom he sensed the most potential.
No, wait a minute, why am I hearing that song? That was played during Augustus. No!
But had to ignore due to his age. After giving it some thought, he sought again to revive the Tetrarchy by giving the west to Constantine II, Italy and its surroundings to Constans, the east to Constantius II, and both Thrace and Greece to Dalmatius. As for Hannibalianus, he was named King of Kings. And yeah, that implies what you think it implies. That's right, Constantine gave the entire unconquered Sassanid Empire to his nephew, as a sloppy seconds at that, on top of claiming that all Christians in the East were under his own personal protection, the madman, which was something that Shapur's great-grandson, Shapur II, used as an excuse to invade the empire and destroy civilization. The peace broken, Constantine prepared to fuck their shit up, only to realize how fucked his own shit was. So weak and ill he became that after praying to God for answers, he realized he was about to die.
No.
He was then rushed west towards Constantinople, seeking to die in the city he had built. But alas, he could only make as far as Nicomedia. After a life of service for the one true God, Constantine sought to legitimize the Christian faith once and for all, so as his final wish, he asked to be baptized. Cleansed away of all sin, despite having none, Constantine gave up to the call from high above, and left this mortal realm one final time. Having ruled as Rome's emperor for over 3 decades, he displayed wisdom and virtue, was never defeated in battle, defended the empire from barbarians countless times, reunited Rome after a terrible civil war, transformed Christianity into a Roman civilizing faith, and gave the empire a new capital that would stand for over 1,000 years. And it is for these reasons, and 1,000 reasons more, that history will forever remember him as Constantine the Great.
R.I.P. Constantine.
Our God is an awesome God. He reigns from heaven above with wisdom, power, and love. Our God is an awesome God. Our God is an awesome God. He reigns from heaven above with wisdom, power, and love. Our God is an awesome God. Our God is an awesome God. He reigns from heaven above with wisdom, power, and love. Our God is an awesome God.
Well, another good video from Delvahati. Please, everyone, be a true Roman. Support the original content creator. It's the right thing to do. The original link is in the description box below. Nothing good ever lasts forever. Everything that has a beginning must and will have an end. But I will say one thing. If there's one thing we can enjoy from this entire video about Constantine the Great, it's how noble and true he was. So let's at least end this on a high note. Shall we?
Exploit, and awaited to be bribed to ensure their loyalty, just waiting for an opportunity to betray him in the future. However, the time had finally come. The time for a new age. The time for revenge.
Time to
And
regulate!
so Constantine proclaimed that the Praetorian Guard would
Be
abolished.
good for them. Well done. Well done. There was finally peace, and I hope all of you have peace. Let us enjoy this adventure, but something tells me, there's a growing pit in my stomach, that the fun adventures and the good times are nearing an end. I want to be wrong. We'll find out on the next episode of Dragon Ball Z. I mean, Americans Learn. Peace.